for like how many admissions did we have to do this month
Mm.
to like track more to make it more so make it as efficient as possible for the employees because I don't want them to have to do like, like if stuff is wonky at a detox, you're doing twice as many admissions as you have to do, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
when we first opened our detox, our Medicaid detox, we were fumbling the ball a bunch, and we did 45 admissions in like We starting over?
Isn't that wonderful, Mahai? Thank you for the folks that said there's no
We can
sound.
tell Dan Singer.
Daniel Singer.
Daniel Singer.
We
if
appreciate
you. Can
you.
hear us. Yeah.
Who is that?
He is from Tribe Recovery Homes.
Founder.
Welcome, Mile High, and everybody watching from all over to Sharing Our Stories. My name is Slim with Nani Al-Jalil from Tribe Recovery Homes. And in the middle, our guest is Peter Gifford, who had just begun to share. And then we realized, as always, we had some kind of technical difficulty as I try to juggle way too many things in here at once. But we want to thank everybody for their patience as we get rolling here. This is Sharing Our Stories, and this program is all about addiction and recovery. We believe that by sharing these stories, we can help people in their recovery, whether it's somebody who's dealing with addiction, or maybe it's somebody who's in their recovery who is just encouraged or uplifted to hear about other people's pathways to their recovery. Or maybe you're a friend or a family member, and someone in your family is dealing with addiction, and this is a way that you can learn about them and maybe find out how you can relate to them, how you can help them, and how you can be a partner to them in their recovery. So that's what this program is all about. And we thank you for joining us here each week. You can also find us on Instagram and on YouTube. And I'm here with Nani Al-Jalil from Tribe Recovery Homes. And this weekend, they've got something really awesome happening as they give back to the unhoused here in Denver.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Slim. Yeah. So this weekend, Tribe will be partnering up with lots of different folks from around the city. And we will be down at the 8th Center from 12 p.m. until 3 p.m. doing a turkey dinner plate giveaway.
Now, where is that?
The 8th Center is located directly across from the Denver City Jail or the Lindsay Flanagan building. It's 1370 Elati.
How many people are you guys going to be feeding?
1,500. And we have probably, I would say we have close to 75 different volunteers that we're going to be staggering throughout. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You guys did this last year. How many years now is this?
We did. This is going to be the 5th annual.
The 5th, and just growing bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And I love what Tribe does.
Yeah.
Also, Tribe, some of the members of Tribe, Tomas Hernandez, are part of Cigar Lords, and they're doing a turkey giveaway this weekend for the community. That's also on Saturday. And you can find out about that at cigarlords.com, LORDZ.com. And all right, so we're going to get right to it. Our guest with us is Peter Gifford from Los Angeles, but now in Denver. How long have you been in Denver?
I have been in Denver since August 2022.
Okay.
Or no, December 2022.
So
started working
almost
in Denver.
2 years now.
Yeah.
And you like it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. The people are nice. It's different.
What brought you here?
Work brought me here. Yeah, Medicaid.
Okay.
Medicaid brought me to Colorado.
And you work at a whole bunch of different places that I'm sure you're going to get into.
Sure.
But a whole bunch of places in recovery right now.
Yep.
And how long have you been doing that?
I have been working. I don't know. I've worked at a lot of different treatment centers at many different roles. You know, like the guy who cleaned the toilets. I've swept. I've cooked. I've shoveled stuff for pigs. I've done all sorts of things for a few years, but in this particular, like since I got sober, 2021. Yeah, 2021, I've been doing admissions and outreach.
Feels good, I bet.
Yeah, it's different. Admissions is a really interesting role. It's a very interesting role. You're getting it's weird because you're never getting the relief, right? Like oftentimes, like when I worked in other roles with treatment, I was like, oh, he's graduating. Like, oh my gosh, like it was so cool to see you like grow and shape yourself into this beautiful human being. Admissions coordinators don't get any of that. They get just the bad. It's just bad.
Yeah, you're getting the rough when someone's coming in their rough state.
Yeah, and we have a detox, so we're dealing with emergent services most of the time.
But I'll tell you, man, when coming in that rough state, man, you're the person that you're that first person. You know, you're the person that's going to show me the love that I need. That's going to get me where I need to go.
I hope so.
I
hope so.
I believe so. So I'm going to turn this over to you, and we want to thank you for coming in as our guest to share. Mile High, our guest is Peter Gifford from Los Angeles, California, and he is our guest here for Sharing Our Stories. Thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I will, I'll try to do a good job.
You're gonna do great.
I'll try to do a good job. I've been sober for 5.5 years. July 14th, 2019 was the last time I got high on some good stuff. I stopped drinking in 2018. I got sober in prison. I got sober in prison the second time I had been. Did not get sober when I went into prison. I used drugs throughout prison and then had a couple of experiences that kind of shifted my frame of mind a little bit, and made me see things through a different light. Pretty grateful for those experiences. I will say that the foundation of, I said this before we had the weird difficulty, the foundation of my recovery, the hardest thing that I had to deal with was getting rid of the people that I used to get high with. It was like I said, it was like a breakup with like a family member or something like that. It was really, really hard. And your mom tells you, like, or your parents tell you growing up, like, don't hang out with those bad people. And they were right, like, all along. Like, if I would have just kind of done that, life might have been a lot easier. The other, I guess I will say, like, foundation of my recovery was taking responsibility. Because even though I was placed in these really crappy situations and had to deal with some really terrible stuff, by any means, like, if I saw anybody else have to go through it, I would have a lot of empathy for them. But I added so much fuel to that fire that didn't need to be there. You know what I mean? And I caused so many of my own problems that I didn't need to have. And coming to terms with that and like, yeah, you're not innocent in all of this, dude. That was really hard. And it was, I don't know. I think that's something that we all have to go through in recovery. It's something that you have to kind of like eat, and you usually eat it in a really bad situation. You know what I mean? Like in a jail cell all alone, and you're like, dang, I really screwed the pooch, as they say. So yeah, I grew up in a really, I started off in a really religious home. My parents were like super, super religious. I went to church probably every other day of the week. My family was the family that stood on the corner of in Hollywood. There's like these street corners, like obviously everywhere, but there's these big kind of like city centers, and they would stand there and preach of hell, and you're going to go to hell and all of this stuff. It was like really like hardcore in your face religion. I'd have to knock on doors and hand out tracts. I was really little at the time, so I didn't really understand what was going on. I kind of just like trailed along. I was like, oh, there's all these people and I might go to hell one day. It was a really weird experience for me. So that went on for, I don't know, about 6 years. I remember it pretty vividly. Like that church was like, it made a pretty big impact on me for some weird reason. But then all of a sudden we left the church just one day. Hey, you're leaving this church and we're going to a different church. And so by that point, how old was I? I don't know, but I can tell you what was on TV. Keenan and Kel were on Nickelodeon TV at the time. And I'm 37 years old. Yeah. And that was probably the first TV show that I ever watched. That was on cable television, was Keenan and Kel on Nickelodeon. It was just one day we were at church, and then one day I was allowed to watch TV. And they're like, you can watch TV. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, you can watch TV now. And everything just kind of like shifted. We had left that church, gone to a different church. The first church, I liken it to a cult. They abused kids a lot. They beat children a lot. And that they preached that it was good to hurt kids, messed my brother up pretty bad. So when we left that church and all of those, there was like these really weird rules. You know, it was like you had to cover all of your skin. You always had to wear a hat. It was just like really, really strict. When all of those rules went away, it really it shocked me. You know, I was like, oh my gosh. And then so we went to a different church. At that church, it was still obviously a very religious church. They're very strict. There was a lot of like no music, couldn't play secular songs. I really liked music. I started falling in love with music, and I wasn't allowed to play a lot of the things I liked or like I heard, because there was spirits coming into me from the music. So it was difficult, right? Like, and I was a pretty like stubborn kid. When my parents divorced, I was 9 years old. And a girl named Sophia, what was her name? Sophia Fuentes, I think her name was Sophia Fuentes, came up to me at church. They just divorced, and she like, do you want to try some pot? I was like, sure, let's try some pot. So at first I ate the pot. I just started eating it because I was like, I don't want to smell like pot. So I just ate the pot, and obviously nothing happened to me because I just ate a bunch of weed. So I kept doing it. I kept eating weed whenever it was around. And then I started smoking weed out of like dollar bills because I didn't know how to like roll a joint or anything like that. I was like very, you know, I was
How old were you?
9. I was 9 years
Wow.
old. Yeah. I was 9 years old. Yeah, it's really young. And I couldn't
Yeah, but it
imagine.
all makes sense as to everything that you're doing. I mean, not that it's okay.
For sure.
The idea that, you know, I was eating it and then I was rolling it in money. You know, it's like something that a 9-year-old who
A
doesn't,
child,
a child who,
what we do when we
Yeah.
don't know.
exactly.
Yeah. And I at the time, I think I was just trying to like escape my family situation. I'll kind of like, so at that time, I'm like trying to get high, finding things to do to get me high, like finding cigarette butts on the street and lighting them, like anything. I was putting whatever I could into my body. My mom would, she was pretty abusive at the time. And I don't like to talk bad about my mom, so I'm not going to get into that a lot because I think my mom, she did like the best she could, but it was a pretty rough household. I had to be like pulled out of the house a lot. There was just a lot of violence inside the home. And she was going through a lot at the time. You know, my dad had just left and was like, "Hey, I'm out of here. I love you, but I can't do this anymore." So it was just like leave the church, no more religion. And then you're getting hit in the head with a skateboard. And then you're like trying to smoke pot out of a dollar bill, like just boom, boom, boom. So, so as I'm trying to change my brain a lot, I kind of keep on meeting new people. I start trying new things. I start stealing liquor when I can see it. I find a beer bottle on the street. I'll drink it. And that kind of went on for, I don't know, for a little bit. 8th grade, I get caught smoking pot at school. This is the crazy part. And I don't like no one, I don't know if everyone has had the same experience. So at that time I'm drinking like Mickey's, I'm doing beer runs. I don't know how old 8th grade, how old is an 8th grader?
12, 13.
I was going to say, yeah, like 14 or something.
Okay. So I was in 8th grade, at a Christian school, stealing booze before school, drinking a lot. And I had still not gotten high from pot, but I still smoked it religiously. And I don't know why. Like I smoked pot as often as I could and nothing changed in my head. And I remember the first time I actually felt the effects of pot. It was a year or 2 later. So I get caught smoking pot at school. I get kicked out of school. They expelled me. And so my parents didn't know what to do. Like, oh my gosh, we're raising a terrible child. So I couldn't take the abuse at home anymore. It was just really, it was terrible. So I ran away. I packed up, I played the guitar at the time. I packed my guitar up with a bunch of clothes. I go to church and I'm going to play in the church band because that's where I could play music, was in the church band. Packed my guitar up and I just left. Whoop, gone. LA is obviously pretty rough place for a runaway 13-year-old. So I went to Venice Beach, started playing guitar on the street corner for some money. Met a couple of kids that were also runaway kids. Started hanging out with them. And so I became from like this church boy, and all of a sudden I found like it's going to sound odd, but it's like gutter punks and these punk rock runaway kids and these runaway rave kids. And I was like, oh man, these are my people. And I felt so good. I was like, oh, like I love you guys so much. And so those were the friends that I started to make. I met a dude. He was a drug dealer. He was like, have you ever tried meth? I was like, I've never tried meth before. He said, okay, here you go. So he chopped up some lines. I get high with this dude. He was, I don't know, he looked as old as me. Like he looked like a middle-aged, like wrinkly man. Like when I close my eyes and think about him. So it was really odd to me. I'm still like really shocked. Like, why would you do meth with a kid, you know, like a child? Dude turned out to be a creep, tried to molest me. So I'm a pretty smart kid, like as far as street smarts go. So as soon as he started to get weird with me, I was like, oh my gosh, sir, I'm so hungry. I need food. And I ran. I hopped out of, I don't even know why I hopped out the window. The door was open. But I jumped out the window and I started running down the street from the guy. And I escaped him. I called my brother and I was like, hey, I'm on a lot of meth. I don't know what that is, but I've been snorting it for a couple of days. Can I come do my laundry at your house? And so I went to my brother's house. He called my dad. My dad comes with the police. They picked me up. They're like, you're in big trouble, young man. I said, awesome. I'll see you later. And that started it. So that was the beginning of like a life of just debauchery. from that point forward. So I never came home. I ran away every 2 weeks. I would be gone for 2 weeks. I'd come back for 2 weeks. I'd be gone for 2 weeks. I'd be back for 2 weeks. I don't know how much time I spent at home, but obviously my parents at that point were going through hell. As I'm a parent now, so I don't know what I would do if my kid was just gone all the time. I think I would freak out, might kill some people. But yeah, it's a pretty scary spot for them to be. So that's what I was doing. I was getting high on the street, snorting meth, smoking meth, snorted heroin whenever it was available, ketamine, started meeting some people, and I just got enveloped in this weird tweaker like lifestyle. My brother was my drug dealer. He's much older than me. He's currently in prison right now. He got caught selling pot. Doing it was, yeah. So he'll get out pretty soon, but yeah. So he was my drug dealer at the time, and it was just very normal for us, right? Like I was doing meth. I got a lot of other kids into meth, which is, I feel pretty weird about nowadays. Got a lot of other 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds into meth when I was 13 and 14 years old. So that went on. Ran away from home. I never stayed at home. I stole a lot of stuff, and did a lot of bad things at that age, and said a lot of stupid things, now that I'm getting older. I know it's an odd thing to point out, but now that I'm older, I've been having like these flashbacks of things I said to kids when I was younger, wanting to apologize to them. And it's really odd. So I 15 years old, I started, making some friends, lost my first friend to drugs, 2002, I think 2002. That was the first friend that I lost to addiction. My brother had sold him some drugs. He got high on those drugs. He faded out. He just he nodded out, and he crashed his car, killed him. And that was the first one. And so I grew up with my best friend. His name was Mike Johnson. And it was our other best friend. It was like the three of us. We'd get high together, do a bunch of stuff. So that was the first friend. When I was 16 years old, still running away from home every day. Parents don't know where I am. I go to school on Fridays. I would take all my tests, get all my homework, and I would leave. And then I would come back, right? Because I was like, I had this thought in my head I was going to become a psychotherapist and teach like people how to do meth correctly. So
that kind of psychotherapist.
Yeah. And I was like, you can do meth and be successful. Like, look at me, I'm a runaway, and I had terrible grades, but I would ace my tests and I wouldn't study anything. And I was like, yeah, you see, and I'm pretty sure it was like the meth, and like I would be able to just read a book really well one night and then just blast off. Yeah, I did it. And I was like impressed with myself. So I go to school, and there's these two big dudes there. They're really buff, they're huge, and I'm strung out. And they said, hey, you're coming with me. And I said, no, I'm not. And they said, you're going to come with us, or we're going to make you come with us. And they had a picture of me in their hands. And I was like, who are these people? And so they grabbed me, they stick me in the back of a car, and they drove me to Mexico. And then, and it was weird. They hand me a picture of my brother and my dad, and they're like, here, they wanted you to have these. And I look at it and I was like, what the hell, dude? And so it turns out these guys were escorts for a program called Casa by the Sea in Ensenada, Mexico. And it was a program run by the Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs, which they've been under investigation a lot. A lot of the stuff that they were doing came out. It was on Netflix, actually, the program. It's called The Program on Netflix. It's about the American programs that they had. I went to the one that was in a foreign country. They had a few others in foreign countries like Samoa and Jamaica. All of the schools were bad. The ones in foreign countries were a little, they were different. So I showed up in the school, and that was kind of my first experience being held against your will, and my first experience with any type of institution. So 16 years old, show up to this place, and I'm like, where am I? This place is based off of and it's really weird. So I'm going to talk about some weird stuff right now. So it's based off of a point system. Every day you get X amount of points, right? So Nani, you did good today. Here's 20 points. You need thousands and thousands and thousands of points to get out of this place. So your goal here is to be on your best behavior, collect those points, make them think that you're good, so they will release you back to the United States.
And who put you in this?
My parents. they paid for these escorts to come. And so the school, yeah, and if the school like lied to parents,
Okay.
yeah, I would never send my child to a place like that because it was just like terrible. And I'll say this, I've spent maybe 5.5, 6 years in state prisons. That year that I spent in Mexico, by far the worst experience of my life. I've never experienced anything worse. It was hell. And so that point system, and it was like an impossible task, right? So you would like stub your toe and say, oh crap, and be like, oh, you said the F word, you lose 2 days and you have to sit on a bench for 8 hours without moving. And when I say like you can't move, I mean like you can't itch without asking for permission to itch. You can't pee. If they don't let you pee, you can pee on yourself, but you cannot pee without them telling you can pee. So there was these weird rules like you can't talk to another person without someone else listening to you. You can't walk past a staff member without asking them for permission to pass their presence. Like you can't like, may I please walk past you? You had to speak Spanish. So I learned Spanish, got pretty good at it. And I was there for a year. And when I say like it was the worst experience, and that was the first time, like I came to grips with my addiction at that point. I was like, yeah, I'm a drug addict, because at that point I was like, when I landed there, that was the first time I had been sober since I was 13 from a hard drug. So I had gone and I had kept a tally from 13 to 16 of every day that I got high. And I think I missed like one day. Like I remember I was like, boop. And the one day was like the worst day of my life. I was like, like freaking out. So I got there and I was sober and I hated it. So I immediately started trying to find ways to get high. I was stealing candy bars and selling them to people for their sleeping pills, anxiety medications. I made up a lot of like my leg hurts, like trying to get painkillers. I never got any painkillers. But I tried everything I possibly could, I asked staff member like, hey, sneak me in some alcohol, all that stuff. And so when I got there, I got the doctor to get me a prescription for Klonopin. And so I was like, thank God I got these Klonopins. And I would cheek them for a couple of days. Then I would take a lot of them. And I don't even like benzodiazepines. And that's the weird part. Like they're not my thing. But I would do anything to get me out of my head. So after a little bit in this place, I promised myself that I would learn and study school as much as I could so that I could kind of like pass all of these like societal like checkpoints and become the best drug dealer I could become. Because that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I just want drugs. The only way for me to know that I have drugs is if I become a drug dealer, I will have all the drugs. So that's what I did. I set out to like learn how to sell drugs. I asked people questions and I started kind of like diving into that. All the while the Mexico thing was going on. Part of my like whole journey in recovery is I don't think I realized like how much damage I was taking on through like the life's experience, trying to like shove it all down with drugs, because I kept on going to like one bad situation, then shove it, like next bad situation, shove it. And so Mexico was pretty bad. I saw a couple kids try to kill themselves a few times there. Staff members beat children regularly. It was like pretty bad. And I won't go into like all of like the terrible graphic details of that place. But the federales raided that facility. And they sent us all back to the United States, and it was just like over again. And it was just like another, just like, oh my gosh, like what's happening here? It was another just like really big revealing day. And they said, these people don't have any more control over you. You have to go back to the United States. And they deported me to the United States, which I said this earlier, like I don't think a lot of people can say they've been deported from Mexico,
to the US.
United States. Yeah. So they deported me. Father picked me up, and I got home and I was like, I cannot believe you sent me there. And because the communication between your family in that place was
limited.
Yeah. I got one phone call after 6 months and they told me to write down what I was going to say. And then, so I got on the phone with him and I picked up the phone. They're like, go ahead and read the script. And I was like, F you, I'm not talking to you ever again. I hope you die. I was so angry. like I was so bitter in that moment because it was just a terrible, terrible place. So I exploded on them and they went click, and then all your points are gone. So back to day one, buddy. So I was basically waiting to age out is what they say. Like I was just waiting to, like, I'm not going to do your thing, man. So because I just was like an impossible task. I'm going to say the F word, man, and I'm going to lose 2 days. Like every F bomb is 2 days. I'm like 400 days out, you know?
Yeah, one step forward, 3 steps back.
Yeah, it was really rough.
You can't get out of there.
No.
Set up to fail.
No one got out of there. Like a few people
set up to fail.
Yeah.
They're there to collect money. They're collecting the money on you being there.
They did.
Keep you there the longer, the more you're worth.
Yeah, they did. And it's actually came to light that they were like faking drug tests. Like in that documentary, they talked about it. They
come out positive, keep you here longer, keep charging your parents.
Yeah. So
I think I've seen that, or I think I've seen the documentary.
Yeah, they made you do weird stuff. The girls in that documentary had to do like this hand clapping thing like this. Yeah, for like 8 hours at a shot. For us in Mexico, they would make you like hold a piece of paper up with your nose for 8 hours. Like you couldn't, like you just, so to and I think it messed me up a little bit, like seeing kids like go through that stuff, you know what I mean? Like I can kind of like talk about it now without like blubbering for a whole long time, but like I think it was bad. I think it was really bad. So I left there, and by like, as far as like violence goes, right? Like I've had, I'm not a violent person. I'm a very peaceful person. I can probably count on one hand how many fights I've been in my life. Like I don't like to hurt people. I'm very passive, and I will like run away from a situation before I like engage in a situation, unless like my family's going to get hurt. So like out of all the violence that I've experienced in my life, prison, just in life, I've experienced a lot of it, but I haven't like been a willing participant in all of it. Prison was, I probably saw more, but I think it was just the like the subject matter of the children that was so like messed up. So I left. I got a job loading tables on a truck at my dad's company, and I saved up my money, and I called my friends in LA, and I was like, I'm going to come down there. We're going to sell drugs. And they said, okay, let's go, buddy. And so I went to LA, and here I went. So I started selling drugs, wanted to make as much money as I could and be really super cool. And I was 17 at the time. I had my own place. I'm like renting a room with people, you know, me and my best friend were running around all night in Hollywood, acting like we were like somebody we weren't. It was pretty fun. I had a really good time for a couple of years. I had a great time. I thought I made good money. I had a lot of fun experiences. And then, there became a few times when I couldn't re-up. I couldn't get more drugs or something like that. And I was out. And I scraped everything, and there was no baggie in sight, and I was out, and I started to really feel, I guess I could call it like big boy withdrawal symptoms. And I was just like, holy crap, like, what is this? I was using heroin at that time, and I started to really like get into it. And I started there was a few times I just like, I gotta die. Like, I don't want to do this, because I just felt so like devastated without the drugs. There was a period when I started shooting speedballs where I prayed to God I was like, please let me feel this way forever. I'll do anything I can. I promise I will like rob, pillage, and steal the whole world if you can just let me feel this way. And I was like praying for that feeling. And it was like really sick, because I would come out of it like, what are you doing? Like, why are you praying for that thing, dude? And so I did that for a little bit. And then one day, and I feel like I'm a pretty like a decent person for the most part, unless I'm on a lot of meth. I went to the store because my drug dealer didn't have a gun lock on her gun, and she had a baby in the house. Not a baby, he was like 3 or 4, and he liked to play police, you know, bang, bang. I put a gun lock on the gun. The police kicked the door in. They arrested me. My prints were on the guns. I didn't tell on anybody because I don't feel like I should tell on people. And they gave me my first charge. It was possession of stolen property, of a stolen firearms. There was a couple of other guns in the house. That was the first time I ever got in trouble with the law. Got out in like, I don't know, like 3 days or something. I was released on my own recognizance. Came back to court. I got put on probation. About a year later, I'm still doing drugs, selling drugs, just being an idiot. A year later, I get my next charge, possession of a heroin. It was a 0.5 gram of heroin. They stuck me on probation. And that was when I first experienced like real probation, drug tests, And then life just sucked. Like from that point, as soon as I had to start getting drug tested, my life sucked because the accountability was just awful. Like it sucked so bad. So I had to go in there. The PO was like, "Oh, you're going to be high again." I'm like, "Yep, going to be high again. You know, I can violate you." "Yep, I know you can violate me. That's good." They started sending me to rehab. And that was the first time I was introduced to Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. That was the first time I met some real criminals. I was like, "Oh crap, you're the real deal. I'm a kid." I like started meeting like real, like, "Oh yeah, I robbed like 20 banks, kid." And I'm like, "Oh dude." So that's when I started like experience real adult consequences and meeting real adult career criminals, things like that. So I get to rehab and I think I wanted to get sober. I think I did, but I can't tell you that I wanted to because I didn't, and I treated it so poorly. I treated my programs so like I lied, I wasn't honest. I lied, like, "Your girlfriend's sober?" I was like, "Yeah, she's sober. She's strung out, like doing heroin, and I know I'm gonna go back to her house and do heroin with her when I leave, even though I'm telling." It was like that whole thing, like one foot in, one foot out. So I eventually relapse. I leave rehab. And that started the rehab world for me. That was the first experience in rehab. That was called Impact. It was Impact Pasadena in California. It was a great program. It was really interesting because a lot of bank robbers went there for some, I don't know why. Like I met like 6 bank robbers and then famous people. And so you're like, it was really weird. Like Chris Farley went there and then the bank robber went there together. I was like, really like tripped me out. Like, I was like, I don't know why there's like there was an anchor woman she was a lush. And she had rolled a car a couple times on a DUI, got sent to rehab. She was there with me. And then it was just such an odd place. Super cool people. That was really old school, super 12-step focused. And so without that, and I truly believe this, if someone does not get sober through treatment, like I don't care. Like as long as I showed them something, like, "Here, man, like look at this. Like you can live a certain way. Like you might run out and you might overdose 20 more times, but it's all good. Like when you're done, like you can come back to this." And that's what it did for me. And so I kept messing around doing stupid stuff, in and out of rehab. I don't know how many rehabs I've been to. I tell people 16 because I think that's as honest of a number as I can sort of give. It might be more, it might be less. But I went to a few treatment centers at that point, started kicking heroin a lot. And that's when I started really like diving into being a piece of crap human and doing bad stuff to get high because I was dope sick. So I'd steal from my mom if I had to. I'd steal from my girlfriend's parents if I had to. I'd steal from my girlfriend if I had to. I would just start doing some pretty shady stuff. Stealing money from people that did not deserve it, writing bad checks, stealing people's cars, like just doing whatever I had to do to keep it going. So that it really shook my world there for a second. So May 5th, 2008, I think it was, Cinco de Mayo, I got drunk, stole a DVD from Ralph's on Sunset and La Brea in Hollywood, and I got tackled by this 300-pound security guard. And he sat me down and he sat on my chest and he was like, "You're a bad boy." And I was like, like I was drunk and I was like, "Okay, you got me." And so the cops came and they arrested me. I got sentenced to prison. First time I ever went to prison. I'd been to county jail a few times.
And that was because you were still on probation at the time?
I was still on probation. Yeah. I stole an $11.98 DVD. And the chart, and I'm pretty big, like with criminal justice. Like I like helping people that are prisoners because I'm a prisoner. And the charges I had, like I should have been sentenced to rehab, like far away or something like that. Like I didn't need to go to prison for 3 years because I stole a DVD that was $11. They tried to like beef the charges up. They called it strong armed robbery, 2 counts of 211, because I wiggled. Like when the guy got me, I was like I tried to wiggle out of it. And then the deli man came and he was like, "You've been a bad boy." And he's like, "Malo mia." And he started like cussing at me and like yelling at me in Spanish. And I was like, "I speak Spanish, bro." And so he started like hitting me. And I was like, "If you hit me again, I'm going to kick you." And I kicked him because he hit me again. So they like tried to do this whole thing like I was some evil person. And I was like, "It's an $11 DVD. Like I was drunk. I'm on drugs. Help me." But they weren't having it because they had sentenced me to a couple of rehabs. So went to jail. I went to jail. The one cool thing I will say about California is that if you go to prison and you tell your corrections, I forgot what it's called, but it's like your counselor. If you tell them like, hey, I have a really bad drug problem and I need help, they will court order you to treatment when you get released from custody. So I was sentenced to treatment when I got out of prison to a place called the Phoenix House. It's right on the beach in Venice Beach. My counselor there, her name was Amy Crichton Craig. She was amazing. Um, she was, she still works in treatment. I don't know what she does. I think she's like an executive director of a place in California now, but she's a beautiful woman. Like she's pretty dope. And she helped all the prisoners like that. Like we were her kids and she helped us. She was like, it was weird because like around a bunch of prisoner dudes, you gotta be kind of like rough around the edges a little bit, you got to take it because they're going to call you names. They're going to say, you look ugly this morning, Amy. Like you got to have a thick skin, you know what I mean? And she was a pretty woman, but she just hung in there with all of them and she'd be like, shut the F up, go sit down and do this. You know what you're talking. Yeah. And so it was a TC community. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Very.
Yeah. So we had attack therapy. We had game night there. It was probably a little watered down, from some of the original TC communities, but I really liked it because I could call people out for stuff that just bothered the crap out of me. I remember there was one dude and he would steal the muffins every morning. And I was like, why do you keep stealing all those freaking muffins, dude? And so I
couldn't wait for your opportunity to game him.
I still remember lighting him up. I was like, you're a muffin thief. I hated it. I don't know why it bothered me so much. Like maybe I wanted to steal the muffins. I don't know, but it was just so weird to me. Anyway, so I was at that place for 6 months. It was a great program. Mama Lena was one of the main counselors there. And she was a prostitute who worked the streets of LA and walked through that door, kicked dope on that couch and stayed there. And she was like 80 years old at the time. She quit doing drugs when she was like 50. And she was like, we're just like, oh my gosh, you're a miracle, And so I left that place and I did not believe that I had a drug problem. So I pretty much said like, I can do drugs. I can sell drugs. I don't have to do the hard stuff. So boom, got out immediately, started selling drugs, growing weed. Weed was worth money back then. So that's what I started doing. So I started making money, growing weed, selling drugs. And even today I have to be very careful with my brain because I can put, like if you listen to a certain song, like if you just listen to some, like, I don't know, what's a good Tupac song? I don't know, just some gangster rap song, you can put yourself back into some delusional space very quickly. And I did that. And I just did that. I listened to the right music. I put on the right clothes and I made a mean face and boop, I'm a drug dealer. And it killed me. And so I did that. I made a lot of money. And I don't say this like to glorify anything I did, but I made a lot of money. I did really, really good. And then I didn't, and it was all gone. So I went from like having like a boatload of cash. My father had died while I was in prison. I hadn't come to terms with that yet. And I sued the doctors that killed him. And I had that money also. So I had like hundreds of thousands of dollars. My girlfriend dumped me. And this is another thing. This is like another recovery lesson, right? Like women relationships, like they'll kill you. So she dumped me, realizing my dad is no longer there. And then I couldn't re-up one day and I had lost this crop of pot right at the same time. So like I lost a lot of things all at once. And I did not have it in me to like fight to get it back. So I locked myself in a warehouse for about 9 months. Maybe I had all the food delivered to me. I had all my drugs delivered to me and I just paid for it and just in a warehouse. And so I'm sleeping on a couch. It's a very cold, dark warehouse. My electricity had shut off. I was really, really dirty. There was a pile of trash, maybe, I don't know, like 10 feet tall, because I just piled it all up. And my brother found me on the floor. I had shot up a strip of Suboxone. I was all out of dope. Like I was out of everything, no more money, like not a dime to my name. It was like the last little bit. And I did shot a strip of Suboxone to try and like get well. I wasn't withdrawing yet. So went into precipitated withdrawal and just boom, like my body exploded, vomiting, everything. And then he walked in and saw me and was like, holy crap, like what's wrong with you? And I was like, I'm on drugs. I need help. So I tried moving around a bunch, and it was at that point that I started just moving. I moved to Washington for a little bit. I moved to this place over here for a little bit, trying to remove myself from the situation and finding myself in the same situation again. And always back with like this relationship thing. Like I would meet someone, I think, oh my gosh, they're the best thing in the world. They would dump me because I'm an idiot, and boop, like worthless human being all over again. And I had to learn about that a lot. So what are we doing on time?
You're doing fine.
Are we doing fine? Okay. So I went to Washington for a year. I met a girl. I fell in love. Yay. She was a terrible human being, like did a bunch of terrible stuff to me, and my family. She was just like a mean girl. I don't blame her. She was on drugs. And she's since passed away because of her addiction as well. And so did all of my friends in Washington that I had at the time. They're all dead. And I just started kind of like losing people. Yeah, that's when a lot of people started dying. So I left Washington. I came back. My friend Mike had killed himself.